Good morning and welcome to the amazing AI PLC investor update. Throughout this recorded meeting, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions could be submitted at any time by the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of your screen. Just simply type in your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question received during the meeting itself. However, the company can review all questions submitted today and publish responses where appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to Paul Matheson, Chairman and CEO. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you very much. So, good morning to current investors and hopefully new investors who are listening in. Today was originally going to be more of a full presentation around updates on our underlying operating business, but in light of recent changes and our RNS today, we decided we would do or handle all the questions as the main focus today. And initially, just to kick things off, we had looked at doing a spin-off of our digital asset treasury to address regulatory and other issues, but due to strong shareholder feedback, we've cancelled that spin-off as per our announcement today. We're still very aware of global stock exchanges tightening requirements and looking at ways to address this, and we'll update people as we go forward. But we believe we have the solutions to handle that tightening, but retaining our current listed structure on Aquis, which was the strong feedback from investors. We are still going to have inside AAI now direct exposure to digital assets in line with our policies, but also in line with the Aquis cryptocurrency policy that they have outlined. So we are there's many moving parts, but we're continuing with our overall crypto strategy and also with our core underlying business, and we'll have further updates as we go. Before I get into the questions, there's been further developments in this market space in other stock exchanges. Japanese stock exchange is sort of announcing the last couple of days that they're going to tighten rules more along the requirements of Aquis, and Australia has done the same, India has done the same. So there is this overriding principle that stock exchanges want companies to be proportionate in their business. So to have effectively proportionate 50% of revenue or 50% of assets being in your core business, while still having a crypto or digital asset treasury. So the key thing about our company is that is very consistent with our strategy and very easy for us to implement, having a core lending and AI services business that we can easily be proportionate versus our treasury aspect. In terms of some of the aspects that we're looking for the spin-off, we are going to continue with those aspects in a sense of we're not spinning off, but we will look at adding to diversify our risk, adding other stock exchange listings in addition to our core Aquis listing. So potentially adding a Mauritian listing who are very pro-crypto, also OTC markets that a number of Aquis companies have joint listed on. So they are very bullish and active in this market space as well. So rather than split the company up, we're going to pursue joint and try listings in other markets while maintaining our core Aquis listing, and work hand in hand with our corporate advisors and with the regulators, both with FCA and with Aquis, to ensure that we maintain our compliance with their current and future policy changes and other things coming down the pipeline. We are uniquely positioned in that even if the crypto space, if the FCA require full licensing that they have for financial services in the UK. Differently to other crypto companies, we're very experienced in dealing with the FCA, with our chairman, previously FCA licensed in UK in lending, myself being previously licensed in Australia, running my own funds management business and used to these regulatory changes and environments. So we will work very closely to ensure compliance and move forward with our strategy. So I'll get into questions now that were pre-submitted. Some companies are beginning to accept cryptocurrency as collateral for loans. I believe JP Morgan last month started accepting Bitcoin and Ethereum. Will Amazing AI Services Mauritius be able to use the crypto exposure from this strategy as collateral for a loan to then lend to Mr. Amazing Loans in the US as funding for the loan business? Now, we'd previously talked about aspects of this in an RNS. The current crypto policy of Aquis has restrictions around lending for lending against crypto assets. So we are consulting still with them and our lawyers and other regulators to see whether that will be allowed under their policy is the answer to that. Second question. In all previous presentations, no other directors have participated. Will there be others joining? The board consists of a non-executive chairman, non-executive chairman, and another executive director who's based in the US, running our office out of Las Vegas. So the time zone is not great for our executive director. However, both of those directors will be at the AGM and available to answer any questions. So for these general presentations, the board believes it's appropriate that the CEO be conducting them. Question 3, from the market reaction to previous presentations and the last RNS regarding the Bitcoin treasury business operating in Mauritius and more focus on the loans business, it looks as though investors are still yet to be convinced by the company's strategy to date. That's correct. So that is why the board has decided to cancel the spin-off and continue as previously outlined in our strategy, but also adding other potential joint listings and dealing directly with regulators to address their concerns. Question 4. You've described the loans business as being capable of delivering 60% margins and 30% profits, which is really good. However, the loans income declared for the year was sub 100,000, which is not enough to attract investors. What is the company doing at the moment? Will it need money to see it deliver higher numbers? And what regions will the company be focused on geographically? So yes, that is correct. That is why we've put in place a £5 million debt facility with myself that we'll be deploying over the next 12 months. So if we're deploying half of those funds as a minimum into our lending business, then that would significantly increase our lending revenue and profits in the business. And then subject to further discussions with our lawyers and regulators and corporate advisors, we could be in addition putting in half of that facility into our digital asset treasury policy. In terms of the geography, so we operate in 6 US states. So we're fully licensed in 5. One of them doesn't require a license as such, just to be registered. Our focus going in the short term is lending in Georgia, where we can lend at 59.9%, those approximate 60% margins. So we'll be focusing on that and then expanding into California and Nevada. In terms of other countries, we do not plan to lend into other countries. We plan to sell our AI services into those countries. Question 5, where is the business licensed to operate, and how long will it take to see new markets? So I think I've answered where we're licensed, but in terms of for new markets being addressed, we are planning that over 2026. We have a question around Bitcoin and leverage and other aspects. We will answer that after further consultation with Aquis and our advisors and so forth. The question 7, with regards to the Aquis listing, it is an exchange that moves in strange ways where the share price can simply not move despite buys showing, and shares can drop by a significant percentage. In their opinion, the market is very volatile to risk buying shares in AAI with wide spreads, making it unattractive as an exchange. Won't comment on some of the aspects of this. It's probably more a comment for Aquis themselves, but we have seen since we listed that our spreads in our stock have dramatically decreased, and trading has dramatically increased, especially in the last couple of months. So while can be large moves in the market, Aquis on the access level is designed for new emerging companies, high growth companies like AAI. So we think it is an appropriate market. But as I said, we're looking at diversifying our stock exchange risk by joint and tri listing in other markets. Question 8. Where exactly is the loan company in terms of development? Are the technology and systems in place to start growing this? Or are there things still being tested before big rollout and push to market occurs? i.e., when are you going to hit the go button and start pushing the loans to market? So the big push, we've already warmed up the engines, so to speak, for lead generation for Georgia loans in the US. So we're currently constantly contacting a database of around 20,000 people who have previously applied for loans just in that one state of Georgia, and we're pushing those out and daily receiving applications and pushing that. The next step is to reignite our direct mail campaign, where we basically run credit scores of customers in the US prior to mailing out to a select group that meet all our underwriting criteria. In the past, that has resulted in around a 2% application rate of people who receive the direct mail, with between 0.5% to 1% or 25 to 50% actually being approved and funded. So we are in that process of doing that, aiming to optimize around this peak December period, pre-Christmas lending, and we'll provide further updates on volumes and progress in due course. But we're really ramping things up from now and specifically in 2026 by utilizing our existing debt facility that is with myself. Question 9, in terms of gross loan amounts, value of loans expect to give out in the next 12 months. As I said, we'd expect to at least be giving out 2.5 million of loans at 60% per annum, but we're looking at increasing that in negotiations, as we previously announced, with potential other additional debt funders and growing the business substantially. Question 10, now that we have two companies, that we actually don't now, we're sticking with the one. I believe previously you were going to use money from the loan business to grow the DAT strategy. Yes, profits from that's still correct, as long as we maintain our 50% proportionality and meet the ongoing requirements of the ACWIS stock exchange. So, 50% is sort of the figure that they have in their, or looking at in their policy, and that is the global trend in the Western world. Question 11, I think is completely unwarranted. However, my only concern is
Pleasure, do bear with us 1 second. Looks like we just lost connection with Paul. Paul, if you could just refresh that connection and we'll bring you back through. Pleasure, do bear with us 1 second. Paul, hi, we've got you back now.
Sorry, there was internet disconnection. Sorry, where did that continue up to, that last question, Paul?
I think the share price, it was on question 11. I think the share price action is completely unwarranted. However, my only concern is around the access to shares in Mauritius. But speaking to some market commentators, are also worried about holding the stock. My question is, how easily tradable will the shares on the Mauritius exchange be?
Okay. So, sorry, we had some internet connections there. We're finishing on question 11 around the share price action. So those issues have been addressed now that people will retain their access. And if we joint list in Mauritius or other markets, investors can choose if they want to move their shares to there or maintain where they are. So that issue with market makers shouldn't be a problem anymore. Question 12, is there already a plan in motion for listing on the stock exchange, or is this a hope in the future? So any idea on timeframes? I've already met with the CEO and the head of stock exchange listings there face to face a couple of times over a recent period. So they are very keen on us doing this. In terms of timeframes, they've indicated a sort of 2-month time period. So we're looking at an application there very quickly. Excuse me. Question 13. So how much of your loan of AAI do you intend to deploy on the crypto market? So as I previously described, half of it, but prior to doing that, getting sign off from the appropriate regulators and advisors. Question 14. The market will ascribe value to the business if it can see the monthly loan KPIs such as amounts lent, returns, defaults and profits. This will be the biggest kicker to the share price, I would have thought, in the short term. Proving out the business can scale. When do you expect to start this? So we expect to start that by most likely with end of December results, and with our release of our full year results with comments on the future. So going forward, in the past, we used to publish sort of monthly results and charts and statistics. So we'll be looking at restarting that at the end of December or January at the latest. Question 15, will you look at further debt funding for the loans business? How large and quickly can this scale? So again, as per previous RNSs over the last 12 months, we've talked about discussions and negotiations with other potential debt funders. The loans business can scale very quickly. Prior to listing on Aquis, the underlying US company was lending at $1 million a month in new loans. So it has shown that capacity to rapidly scale. It has had $10 million family office debt facilities in the past, and we're hoping that in 2026 that we will have those sort of facilities and growth again. Question 17, will shares be fully transferable between exchanges? Yes, they will. So it will be the same company, but investors would then need to choose if they want to swap to, say, a Mauritian broker. I assume most UK investors would just stay with their current arrangements. I think that's the last question.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed for asking those questions you can from investors. Of course, any further questions that do come through, they will be available for review and responses published on the Investor Meet Company platform. Just before redirecting investors to provide you with their feedback, which is particularly important to you, Paul, could I just ask you just for a few closing comments, please?
Thank you all for joining. I realise it's volatile or uncertain times with very rapidly changing environment in this space. And also significant volatility in the underlying crypto assets. I think one of the key points to make is that we have only deployed a non-material amount at this point. So we took a view that we believe Bitcoin was heading down and the other crypto assets. We have saved an enormous amount of money by not deploying our funds in the last couple of months. And as per our announcement before, we'll be looking at deploying our funds into this policy by the end of December. We think there's likely further downside in the very, very short term, but we think that the market will stabilize certainly by the end of December, and it's going to be a very attractive time for us to purchase. Thank you.
Fantastic, Paul. Thank you very much indeed. Could I please ask investors not to close the session? You should now automatically be redirected to provide your feedback in order the team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete. I'm sure it's greatly valued by the company. On behalf of Amazing AI PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That concludes today's session, and good morning to you all.